I am standing in this filthy motel parking lot, 305 miles from my house, with nothing but the clothes on my back and $10 in hand. The taillights of their car are already disappearing into the distance, swallowed by the darkness of this godforsaken highway stretch tonight. Figure it out, mother-in-law. Those were the last words my daughter-in-law screamed at me before her mother hit the gas pedal hard and fast. My hands are shaking so badly I can barely hold on to this crumpled $10 bill, the only thing they left me with besides total humiliation. At 68 years old, I have arthritis that makes my fingers look like gnarled tree branches, bent and twisted from decades of working way too hard. Each wrinkle on my face tells a story nobody bothered to read, lines carved deep by years of sacrifice that were never acknowledged or valued properly. I built my whole life around being useful, being needed, being the foundation everyone else stood on while they reached for all their big dreams. My name is Eleanor, but right now standing here abandoned like yesterday's trash, even my own name feels like it belongs to a complete stranger. I spent 40 years as a nurse, wiping away other people's pain, holding their hands through their darkest moments, always there for absolutely everyone. But when I needed someone, when I was vulnerable and trusting, my own family saw me as nothing more than a fat bank account they could drain dry. There was no dramatic goodbye, no tearful explanation, just a slow poisoning of trust that started the day my son married that awful woman 2 years back. The motel sign flickers above me, buzzing like an angry wasp, casting sickly yellow light across the cracked asphalt where I stand completely frozen. My heart is pounding so hard, I can feel it in my throat, each beat reminding me I'm still alive, even though I feel utterly destroyed deep inside. Before I tell you how I ended up in this absolute nightmare, I need to know I am not talking to empty air, that someone out there really understands. Comment your name and where you are watching from. And please check if you are subscribed to the channel. It truly helps me keep sharing these stories. Write in the comments where you are watching this video from. I love knowing how far these real stories about survival and strength can actually reach. How did I get here? You are probably wondering right now, how does a woman end up abandoned by her own family like she is nothing but pure garbage? Everything started 3 months ago when my daughter-in-law, Sarah, and her mother, Patricia, showed up at my door with smiles that did not reach their eyes. They had not visited me in over a year, barely returned my calls, but suddenly they were all concerned about my well-being and my uncertain future. Sarah hugged me tight, too tight, like she was trying to squeeze something valuable out of me, and her perfume was expensive, aggressive, completely suffocating. My dear mother-in-law, we have been so worried about you living alone in this big house. What if something terrible happens and nobody is around here? Her voice dripped with fake sweetness that made my stomach turn uncomfortably, but I was lonely, desperate for family connection, so I wanted to believe. Patricia nodded enthusiastically, her eyes already scanning my living room like a hawk, calculating values like an appraiser at an estate sale of the dead. We have been thinking, Eleanor. Maybe it is time to simplify your life, sell this house, move somewhere smaller, easier to manage at your advancing age. They stayed for hours, drinking my coffee, eating my homemade cookies, talking about how much they cared while their eyes measured every single valuable item. I was so hungry for their attention, so pathetically grateful they remembered I existed at all, that I ignored every red flag waving frantically inside my gut. They convinced me to sign some papers, just temporary power of attorney, they said, just to help with the paperwork while we figure things out together peacefully. I trusted them because they were family, because my son loved Sarah, because I wanted so desperately to believe I still mattered to someone on this earth. The lawyer they brought seemed rushed, impatient, barely explained anything before sliding documents across my kitchen table for my shaking signature and approval. Looking back now, I can see how carefully they planned every word, every gesture, every manipulation designed to make me feel helpless, dependent, and weak. But the first real warning came 2 weeks later when I tried to access my bank account online and found my password had been mysteriously changed somehow. When I called the bank, confused and worried, they told me someone with the power of attorney had made changes to my account for important security purposes. My stomach dropped like I had missed a step going downstairs. That sickening moment when you realize you are falling and cannot stop it from happening. I called Sarah immediately, my hands trembling so badly I could barely hold my phone steady, and asked her what was happening with all my hard-earned money. "Oh, Mother Eleanor, do not worry. We are just organizing things better, making sure everything is secure. You know how dangerous online banking can really be." Her voice was smooth as silk, reassuring as poison in honey, and I wanted to believe her because the alternative was too terrifying to consider at all. But I am not stupid, despite what they thought about old people. 70 years of living teaches you to recognize when something smells completely rotten. I started paying attention, really paying attention, to the little things that did not add up properly, the inconsistencies in their stories and busy schedules. That is when I noticed Sarah coming to my house when she thought I was at my book club meetings, going through my mail, my documents, my entire life. One afternoon, I came home early, my book club canceled, and caught her in my bedroom going through the drawer where I kept all my important legal papers. She jumped like a cat caught stealing cream, her face flushing red before she plastered on that fake smile that never once touched her calculating cold eyes. "I was just looking for that recipe you promised me last week," she lied so smoothly I almost believed it, almost let myself be fooled one more stupid time. But I knew what drawer held my recipes, and it was not the one containing my insurance policies, my will, my stock certificates, my whole documented life. The next few weeks were a blur of increasingly aggressive suggestions that I should take a vacation, get away, let them handle absolutely everything for me. They had already planned it all out, they said. A lovely road trip to see some old friends. They would drive me, take care of every single little thing. I should have said no, should have trusted my gut screaming that something was deeply wrong, but I was tired, confused, still hoping I truly mattered. And that brings me back to this moment, this parking lot, this motel that looks like where hope comes to die in the forgotten American dusty wasteland. Standing here now, the full weight of what they did is crushing down on me like a building collapsing in slow motion directly onto my fragile chest. They drove me here over 2 days, chatting pleasantly, stopping at scenic overlooks, playing the role of caring family with absolutely Oscar-worthy, convincing performances. Then this morning, they said they needed to run errands, left me in the motel room, and I waited like a complete fool for 5 whole hours. When I finally went outside, worried something had happened, I found them loading my suitcases from the room back into their car trunk without any explanation. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice small and frightened, already knowing deep in my bones exactly what was happening to me right here and now. Sarah turned to me with a face I had never seen before, cold and hard as winter stone, all pretense of affection completely stripped away like paint. "We are done taking care of you, old woman. You signed everything over. We got what we needed. Now you can figure out your own pathetic, miserable life." Her mother laughed, actually laughed, like my pain was the funniest joke she had heard, like I was not even human, just an obstacle, finally removed forever. "Figure it out, mother-in-law," Sarah screamed as they climbed into the car, "and those words will echo in my nightmares until the day I finally die someday. I stood there watching them drive away, my entire life packed in their trunk, my bank accounts drained, my house probably already sold from beneath my feet. The motel clerk felt sorry for me, let me stay one more night for my last $10, but tomorrow I will be on the street with absolutely nothing. I have never felt so small, so worthless, so completely erased from existence, like I never mattered at all to anyone who knew me or my name. For 2 years, I survived in this strange limbo between living and dying, working out at jobs, sleeping in shelters, invisible to the world walking around me. I cleaned houses for people who did not bother learning my name. I served coffee to customers who looked right through me like I was an actual ghost. Every morning, I woke up and wondered if this would be the day I just gave up, stopped fighting, let myself disappear completely from this cruel earth. But anger is a powerful thing. Anger can keep you alive when hope dies. Anger can burn in your chest like a hot furnace on the coldest night. I thought about them constantly, obsessively, imagining their comfortable lives financed by my stolen money while I scrubbed toilets for minimum wage and table scraps. Then 6 months ago, something changed dramatically. Something that would transform me from a victim into something far more dangerous, far more determined than they imagined. I was at the public library using their computers, the only place I could get online without paying, when I decided to search for my son Michael. I had not spoken to him since the abandonment, assumed he was part of their plan, thought he must have known what his wife did to me. What I found made my blood run cold and hot at the same time, made me realize the situation was so much more complicated than I ever understood. There was an online obituary, but not for who I expected, and the words I read there changed everything I thought I knew about my broken family. My son Michael had posted it, a long, bitter, angry tribute to his marriage, to the woman he thought he knew, to his completely shattered life now. He wrote about how Sarah had controlled every aspect of his existence, isolated him from everyone, turned him into someone he did not recognize at all. She monitored his phone, his emails, his bank accounts, treated him like property she owned rather than a human being worthy of any basic human respect. He had become a prisoner in his own home, working constantly to fund her shopping addiction while she berated him for not earning even more money. The post detailed years of emotional abuse, manipulation, gaslighting that made him question his own sanity and perception of basic reality around him at all. And then, buried in the middle of this heartbreaking confession, I found the paragraph that made me physically gasp aloud in that quiet small-town library space. My mother disappeared 2 years ago, and Sarah told me she had abandoned us, chosen to cut off contact, wanted nothing to do with me anymore, ever. I believed her, Michael wrote. Because I was so beaten down, I believed everything she said, even when it destroyed what was left of me as a person. I tried to call my mother so many times those first few months, but Sarah had blocked her number on my phone without me knowing it was happening. She said my mother was toxic, that she was trying to manipulate me, that cutting her off was the only way I could finally be happy and free. And like a fool, like an abused, broken fool, I believed every poisonous word that came out of her lying mouth about my own mother who raised me. My hands were shaking so violently, holding that library mouse, that I could barely click to read more, barely breathe through the rage building inside my chest. There was more, so much more, details about money disappearing, about secret bank accounts, about Sarah's affair with her personal trainer named Derek the whole time. Michael had finally hired a private investigator after finding hotel receipts, and what the investigator discovered had blown his world completely apart that very day. Sarah had been stealing from him for years, draining accounts, taking out credit cards in his name, building a nest egg for her planned escape with a Derek. The affair had been going on since before they got married, and Derek was not just her trainer. He was her partner in every scheme, including mine. Together they had convinced Patricia, Sarah's mother, to help them find a mock. And I, lonely vulnerable widow Eleanor, had been the perfect target victim to exploit. The obituary ended with Michael saying he had filed for divorce, reported them to police for fraud, and was trying to find his mother desperately and urgently. If anyone has seen Elliot Muir Thompson, 68 years old, last seen 2 years ago, please contact me. I need to tell her I am so incredibly sorry. I sat in that library for 3 hours reading and rereading those words, watching my entire understanding of the past 2 years completely transform itself in real time. My son had not betrayed me. My son was a victim too. My son had been searching for me while I was invisible and broken and alone. The rage that filled me then was not the helpless anger of the abandoned. It was the focused fury of someone who finally understands the true enemy. I started digging, researching, using every free computer hour the library gave me to uncover the full scope of what they had done to both of us. I found the property records showing my house had been sold 3 weeks after they abandoned me for $487,000, all cash, all completely stolen. I found the bank statements I managed to request showing systematic withdrawals, transfers to offshore accounts, money laundering through shell companies they had secretly created together. I discovered Patricia had a record, fraud convictions from 15 years ago, had served time, was the mastermind behind this entire operation from the very start. Sarah was not the poor innocent girl who fell into bad influences. She was a career con artist who had targeted my son specifically and very deliberately. They had researched him, found out about his elderly mother with assets, his kind heart, his desperate loneliness after his father died young of cancer. Everything about their relationship had been a lie, a long con designed to get close to me, to him, to gain access to everything I owned. And the most devastating part, the detail that made me want to scream until my voice gave out, was how easily I had played my assigned role. I had been so desperate for family, so hungry for connection, so pathetically grateful for their attention, that I had ignored every obvious warning sign, screaming. They had not even needed to work that hard to fool me. I had practically handed them my life on a silver platter with a smile. But knowledge is power, and for the first time in 2 years, I had something more valuable than anger. I had evidence, facts, solid proof of everything. I started copying documents, saving files, building a case with the patience of someone who had learned survival means taking your time and planning very carefully. If you are still with me, listening to this, I need you to comment. Tell me if you have ever been betrayed by someone you truly love deeply. Your stories matter to me. Your experiences help me feel less alone in this nightmare. I genuinely want to hear from you in the comments section below. For 3 months, I worked on my case, contacted legal aid services, found a lawyer who took my situation pro bono because my story absolutely enraged them. My lawyer was a woman named Jennifer Chen, 45 years old, who had watched her own grandmother get scammed and was on a personal crusading mission now. She helped me gather everything we needed, contact the authorities, build a case so airtight that there would be no escape for them this time around. We discovered Sarah and Patricia had done this before at least 3 other times, leaving a trail of destroyed families in their wake across multiple states. Derek the trainer was their inside man, helped them identify vulnerable targets, played different roles in different cons, was wanted in 2 states already for fraud. The police were very interested once we showed them everything. Suddenly, this was not just about one old woman. This was a pattern of elder abuse. I also did something they would never expect, something that would hurt them far more than any criminal charges. I contacted my son through Facebook Messenger. The message I sent was simple, direct, no accusations or blame, just truth. Mom is alive. I never abandoned you. We were both victims of Sarah together. He called me within 5 minutes, sobbing so hard he could barely speak, apologizing over and over for not protecting me, for believing all her lies. We met 3 days later at a coffee shop, and when I saw my son, my baby boy now 43 years old, I barely recognized him anymore. He had lost so much weight. His eyes were hollow and haunted. He looked like someone who had survived a war and lost everything worth living for. We held each other and cried for an hour straight, mourning the time stolen from us, the relationship destroyed by manipulation and calculated cruelty we both suffered. Michael told me everything, every detail of his marriage, the abuse, the control, how she had isolated him from every friend and family member systematically. She had even convinced him that his mother hated him, that I blamed him for his father's death, lies so cruel I could barely comprehend the pure evil. And then he told me something that made my blood run cold, something that added a new dimension to my growing understanding of their twisted future plans. Sarah is planning a huge anniversary party next month, celebrating 2 years of marriage, inviting everyone who matters in her social circle to show off her success. She told everyone her mother-in-law, who was dead, that I had passed away from a heart attack shortly after their wedding, even showed fake sympathy to people. The party is going to be at the country club. She rented out the entire ballroom, spending my stolen money to throw herself a celebration of lies. Patricia will be there. Derek will probably be there, pretending to be just a friend. Everyone who helped destroy our lives will be present and celebrating together. That is when I knew exactly what I had to do, exactly how to make them pay, exactly how to get justice in the most satisfying way possible. I spent the next month preparing with the focus of a general, planning a military campaign, every detail considered, every contingency mapped out very carefully. My lawyer helped me draft legal documents that would be served at the party, public and humiliating, impossible to hide or explain away to their fancy guests. We contacted the police and arranged for detectives to be present, waiting, ready to arrest them the moment I gave the signal they had been waiting for. I worked with a social worker to prepare victim statements from the 3 other families they had destroyed, people ready to testify against them in court. And I did something else, something just for me. I spent $50 I had saved on a beautiful dress from a thrift store, deep ocean blue. I wanted to walk into that party, looking like someone who had survived hell and come out stronger, not defeated, not broken, victorious despite absolutely everything. The night of the party arrived, and I stood outside the country club watching guests arrive in their expensive cars, their designer clothes, their complete obliviousness. My son stood beside me, his hand gripping mine so tight I could feel his pulse racing through his palm, his breathing fast and nervous and scared. "Are you sure about this, Mom?" he asked me for the 10th time, his eyes worried and protective, wanting to shield me from any more pain. "I am sure," I told him calmly, "because the truth is the most powerful weapon we have, and they will not escape it this time around at all." We walked in together, mother and son, united after 2 years of forced separation, and the look on Sarah's face when she saw me was worth everything. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint right there on the expensive marble floor she had rented for her fake celebration. Patricia saw me next and actually dropped her champagne glass, the crystal shattering on the floor like the lies they had built their entire lives upon. The room went quiet as people noticed something was happening, that the atmosphere had shifted from celebration to something far more tense and dramatic and uncomfortable. "Hello, Sarah," I said clearly, my voice carrying across the silent ballroom. "My dead mother-in-law, Eleanor, sends her regards from the grave tonight to everyone." I heard gasps, murmurs, people pulling out their phones to record what was happening. Their party turned into the entertainment they never expected to see tonight. "You see, everyone, Sarah told you all that I died 2 years ago, that I passed peacefully, surrounded by family who loved me deeply and mourned. But the truth is, she and her mother drove me 305 miles from home, stole everything I owned, and abandoned me at a roadside motel like trash." I pulled out the folder Jennifer had prepared, thick with documents, evidence, proof of every crime, every lie, every dollar they had stolen from me completely. For 2 years, I survived on the streets, working minimum wage jobs, sleeping in shelters, while she spent my money throwing parties exactly like this one. Sarah tried to speak, her mouth opening and closing like a fish drowning in air, but no words came out, just desperate, gasping sounds of pure panic. Patricia tried to run, actually turned and headed for the door, but 2 police detectives stepped forward, blocking her escape route from the crowded room. "Sarah Patterson, Patricia Williams, you are under arrest for elder abuse, fraud, theft, and conspiracy," the detective said, pulling out handcuffs slowly and deliberately for everyone. The gasp turned into shocked exclamations as the other guests realized they were witnessing not a party drama, but actual arrests happening right before their eyes. And Derek, yes, Derek was there, tried to slip away in the chaos, but Michael, my beautiful brave son, blocked his path with fury burning in eyes. "You helped them destroy my mother, helped them abuse me for years, helped them steal everything we had," Michael said, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage. Another detective stepped forward to arrest Derek, and the 3 of them were handcuffed and led out through the ballroom they had rented for their celebration party. But I was not done yet. There was one more thing I needed to do, one more piece of justice that had to be served publicly tonight. I turned to face the crowd of shocked guests, many of them people Sarah had befriended using my stolen money, her fake social circle built entirely on fraud. "Everything she told you was a lie," I said clearly. "Every friendship she bought was with money stolen from me. Her life was built on pure cruelty. I watched her be led away in handcuffs, watched Patricia crying and screaming about lawyers, watched Derek's smug face finally show real fear underneath his charm. And in that moment, standing in that ballroom with my son beside me and justice finally being served, I felt something I had not felt in years. Not happiness exactly, not joy, but a deep, profound peace that comes from knowing the truth has been heard and cannot be ignored or buried anymore. The party guests left quickly after that, embarrassed, shocked, many of them apologizing to me, though they had done nothing wrong themselves at all, really. Michael and I stayed until the end, watching the country club staff clean up the shattered glass, the abandoned champagne, the destroyed celebration party scene. The legal process took months, but with all the evidence we had gathered, their public defenders could not argue against the mountain of proof we presented. Sarah and Patricia both pleaded guilty to multiple counts of fraud and elder abuse, receiving sentences of 8 and 12 years in prison, respectively, for their crimes. Derek took a plea deal and testified against them, receiving 5 years, but his career as a con artist was effectively destroyed permanently, forever now. The money they had stolen was traced and most of it recovered, minus what they had already spent on their lifestyle of lies and fake success stories. I got my house back, or rather, I got enough money to buy a different house. a new start, a place without the ghosts of betrayal haunting. Michael divorced Sarah, obviously, and started therapy to heal from the years of abuse he had endured under her controlling manipulation and gaslighting tactics that destroyed him. We rebuilt our relationship slowly, carefully, learning to trust again after everything that had been broken and destroyed between us by their calculated evil schemes and plots. Now, a year later, I am 70 years old, living in a modest house near my son, working part-time at a bookstore because I genuinely like it. I am not rich anymore. They took that from me, and I will never fully recover financially from what they did, but I have something more valuable. I have my dignity back, my self-respect, my knowledge that I fought back and won, that I refused to stay a victim and became a true survivor. I have my son back, our Sunday dinners, our phone calls, our relationship healing slowly like a broken bone, knitting itself back together with precious time. And I have peace knowing they cannot hurt anyone else for a very long time, that their pattern of destruction has finally been stopped cold permanently. The 3 other families they had victimized came forward during the trial, and watching them get justice too was almost as satisfying as my own vindication. One woman was 72 years old. They had taken her entire retirement savings, left her homeless for a year before her daughter finally found her living rough. Another was a widower, 68. They had convinced him to sign over his late wife's life insurance, money he had planned to leave for his grandchildren. The third was a couple in their 70s. They had lost their farm, land that had been in their family for 4 generations, gone in weeks. Hearing their stories made me realize how lucky I was to have survived, to have found the evidence, to have had a son who was also a victim. Many of these elderly victims never get justice. They die before the truth comes out, or they are too broken to fight, or nobody believes them at all. I almost became another statistic, another forgotten old person who disappeared, another case file closed without resolution, another silent victim of elder abuse and exploitation. But I did not disappear. I fought back, and now I am here telling you this story so maybe someone else will recognize the warning signs. If you are elderly and someone suddenly shows interest after years of neglect, be very careful, very suspicious. Protect yourself and your assets immediately, please. If family members you barely know suddenly want power of attorney, get a second opinion from a lawyer you choose yourself, not one they conveniently bring. If people are pressuring you to sign documents quickly without explanation, that is not normal care. That is a red flag screaming danger ahead for you. Trust your gut, even when you are lonely, even when you want to believe, even when it would be easier to just go along with it. I ignored my gut because I was desperate for family connection, and it cost me 2 years of my life, my savings, my home, nearly everything. The loneliness of old age is real. The desire to matter to someone is powerful, and con artists know exactly how to exploit those vulnerable feelings. They target us because they think we are easy marks, that we are too old to fight back, too embarrassed to report it, too isolated to get help. And often they are right. Most elderly victims never report the abuse. They suffer in silence, ashamed, broken, convinced it was somehow their own fault. I almost fell into that trap too. Almost accepted that I deserved what happened, that I was stupid for trusting, that I should just disappear quietly. But anger saved me. Anger and the accidental discovery that my son was also a victim, that I was not alone, that together we could fight them. If I had not found that obituary post in the library that day, I might still be working minimum wage jobs, sleeping in shelters, invisible to everyone. If Michael had not been brave enough to post about his abuse publicly, seeking his mother, we might never have found each other again in this lifetime. Sometimes the smallest coincidences, the tiniest pieces of luck, can change everything, can be the difference between justice and permanent loss of hope and dignity. I think about that a lot now. How close I came to never knowing the truth, to dying alone, thinking my son had betrayed me too. The pain of believing my own child had abandoned me was worse than the physical hardship of homelessness, worse than the hunger, worse than the cold. That emotional wound cut deeper than anything else they did to me, and healing it has been the longest, hardest part of my recovery from this trauma. Michael struggles with guilt, even though none of this was his fault. He was manipulated just as badly as I was, controlled and abused for years. His therapist says it will take time for him to forgive himself for not seeing through Sarah's lies, for not protecting me, for believing the worst. But I tell him every Sunday over dinner that there is nothing to forgive, that we were both victims, that the only guilty people are in prison now. We are learning to be mother and son again, relearning how to trust each other, rebuilding what they tried so hard to permanently destroy between us. Some days are harder than others. Some days the weight of what we lost, the years stolen from us, feels too heavy to carry forward into tomorrow. But we carry it together now, and that makes all the difference in the world, knowing I am not alone anymore, knowing he understands my pain completely. The bookstore where I work part-time has become a sanctuary for me, surrounded by stories, helping people find the books, connecting with my small community here. My coworkers know my story. They read about it in the local paper when Sarah and Patricia were arrested, and they treat me with respect and kindness. I am not a victim to them. I am Eleanor, the woman who fought back, the survivor who refused to stay silent, the grandmother who got justice finally. That is how I want to be remembered, not as the old woman who was conned and abandoned, but as the old woman who came back fighting. I started volunteering at a local senior center, talking to other elderly people about financial abuse, helping them recognize warning signs, empowering them to protect themselves. Many of them have similar stories, children or relatives who suddenly show interest when they think there is money involved, then vanish when there is not. The epidemic of elder abuse in this country is staggering. Billions of dollars stolen every year, thousands of elderly people abandoned, exploited, destroyed by their families. And most of it goes unreported because victims are ashamed, scared, isolated, convinced nobody will believe them or help them fight back against the powerful family members. I tell them my story, show them it is possible to fight back, to get justice, to rebuild even when everything seems lost forever and hopeless. Some of them cry when I speak, recognizing their own experiences in my words, finally feeling seen and heard after years of silent suffering alone. Others get angry, that good anger that motivates action, that makes them decide to report their abusers, to seek legal help to stop being victims. If my story can help even one person avoid what I went through, or give one person courage to fight back, then everything I suffered has meaning. That is what I tell myself on the hard days when the memories of those 2 years come back, when I wake up panicking, thinking I am still homeless. I still have nightmares sometimes, dreams where I am back at that motel watching them drive away, or sleeping on the street, or working 3 jobs barely surviving. Michael says he has nightmares too, dreams where Sarah is controlling him again, monitoring his phone, telling him he's worthless, isolating him from the world completely. Trauma does not just disappear because you get justice. It lives in your body, in your nervous system, in the way you react to certain triggers. But we are healing slowly with the therapy and time and the knowledge that we are safe now, that they cannot hurt us anymore. that we survived. I look at my son now, finally smiling again, finally relaxed, finally free from her control, and I feel such overwhelming gratitude that we found each other. We talk about his father sometimes, my late husband who died too young, and I know he would be proud of how Michael fought to rebuild his life. He would be proud of me too, I think, for not giving up, for surviving 2 years of hell, for fighting back instead of accepting defeat quietly. My husband always said I was stronger than I knew, that I had a core of steel hidden under my quiet exterior. And I guess he was right. I did not know I had this strength in me until I was forced to find it, until survival meant digging deeper than I ever thought possible. That is what crisis does. It reveals who you really are underneath the social niceties and daily routines. It strips you down to your essential core. And I discovered I am a fighter, even at 68 years old, even after losing everything, even when the world had written me off as finished. I am still here, still standing, still fighting. And that is the ultimate revenge against people who thought they could erase me from existence completely. Sarah sits in prison, now thinking about all the money she lost, all the freedom she lost, all the plans destroyed, and I hope it haunts her. I hope she remembers the moment I walked into that ballroom, the moment her carefully constructed lies came crashing down around her in public shame. I hope Patricia remembers too, remembers that the old woman she laughed at while abandoning her on a highway ended up destroying everything they had built. And I hope Derek remembers that his charm and good looks could not save him from justice, that his victims got the last word after all this time. But mostly, I hope other con artists out there think twice before targeting elderly people, before assuming we are easy victims who will not fight back hard. We are not all helpless. We are not all alone. We are not all too ashamed or scared to seek justice. Some of us will fight back, and we have something younger con artists do not have. We have decades of accumulated knowledge, patience, determination, and nothing left to lose, really. We have survived wars, recessions, personal tragedies. We have buried spouses and friends. We have lived through more pain than most people can imagine surviving. So if you think you can break us, think again, because we are already broken and rebuilt so many times that we know exactly how to survive. My message to other elderly people is this: you are not alone. You are not worthless. You are not too old to fight for justice and dignity. If someone is abusing you, stealing from you, abandoning you, there are people who will help. Organizations that exist specifically to protect elders like us. Contact Adult Protective Services. Contact legal aid. Contact the police. Contact your local senior center. Someone will listen. Someone will help you fight back today. And to the con artists targeting elderly people, we are watching now. We are aware. We are organizing, and we will not be easy victims anymore. Every time you successfully scam an elderly person, you are creating someone like me, someone who will spend every remaining day fighting to stop you forever. You are creating advocates, warriors, survivors who will tell their stories, warn others, work with authorities to shut down your operations one by one daily. The elderly community is stronger than you think. We have resources you do not expect. We have allies in law enforcement, social services, legal aid everywhere. And we have something more powerful than any of that. We have the truth, and the truth always comes out eventually, no matter how deep you bury it. So now, I have to ask you, because I still wonder about this sometimes late at night when sleep will not come to me easily as I lay awake. Did I go too far? By destroying them publicly? By making sure everyone knew what they did? By choosing humiliation as part of their deserved punishment? If you discovered the people who raised you actually despised you all along, secretly mocked you behind closed doors, could you forgive, or would revenge feel necessary? Have you ever had to choose between taking the high road and making sure someone pays for the damage they deliberately caused to your entire life? I genuinely want to know what you think about the choices I made, whether you understand my anger or think I should have just moved on quietly. The thing is, moving on quietly is what they expected, what they counted on, what their entire plan required to work without any consequences at all. They assumed I would be too ashamed to tell anyone, too broken to fight, too invisible for anyone to care about what happened to me out there. And for 2 years, they were right. I was invisible. I was broken. I shuffled through life like a ghost, haunting the edges of other people's worlds. But finding out my son was also a victim changed something fundamental in me. It gave me a reason to fight beyond just my own pain and survival. I was not fighting just for myself anymore. I was fighting for him too, for us, for every elderly person who has been victimized this way. That is what gave me the strength to walk into that country club, to face them publicly, to risk the humiliation if somehow they had won. Because the alternative was letting them get away with it, letting them continue to destroy other families, letting them win by staying silent and defeated forever. And I could not do that. I could not live with myself, knowing I had the evidence, the proof, the power to stop them, and chose not to use it. Some people might say revenge is not healthy, that I should have just reported them quietly and moved on, focused on healing instead of hurting them back. But this was not about revenge in the petty sense. It was about justice, accountability, making sure they faced real consequences for what they had done. They took 2 years of my life, my home, my savings, my relationship with my son. They tried to erase me completely from existence, like I never mattered. A quiet police report would not have given me back what they took, would not have repaired the damage, would not have made anyone understand the full horror. But walking into that party, seeing their faces when they realized I was alive and fighting back, watching them be arrested in front of everyone they tried to impress, that gave me something back. Not my money or my lost years, but my dignity, my sense of self, my proof that I was not the worthless nothing they claimed. It showed everyone who witnessed it that elderly people are not disposable, that we matter, that there are consequences for treating us like garbage to discard. And it warned everyone in that room, everyone who heard about it afterward, that elder abuse is real, and the victims sometimes fight back hard. I do not regret the public nature of their arrest. I do not regret the humiliation they felt, because they humiliated me first without any remorse at all. They laughed while abandoning me. They celebrated with my stolen money. They told everyone I was dead and felt nothing about it. No guilt, no shame, nothing. So no, I do not feel bad that their arrest was public, that their friends saw them in handcuffs, that their lies were exposed for everyone to witness. They chose to build their lives on lies and stolen money. They chose to hurt people for profit. They chose to risk everything for greed and power. I just made sure they faced the natural consequences of those choices, that the truth they tried to bury came out into the bright, unforgiving light. My lawyer Jennifer says that public cases like mine help prevent future abuse because they show con artists that elderly victims might fight back now. The local news covered the story. Newspapers wrote it articles. Social media shared it. Suddenly everyone was talking about elder abuse and how to prevent it. The senior center where I volunteer saw a huge increase in people coming to their financial abuse prevention workshops after my story went to public that month. 3 people reported their own abuse situations directly because they heard my story and realized what was happening to them was not normal or acceptable at all. One woman had signed over power of attorney to her grandson who was draining her accounts, just like Sarah did to me, and she got her money back. Another man realized his daughter was forging his signature on checks, stealing his Social Security, and he was able to stop it before he lost everything forever. A couple discovered their son-in-law was planning to move them to a nursing home against their will to take their house, and they protected themselves in time. So my public revenge, my deliberate choice to expose them at that party instead of quietly pressing charges, actually helped other people avoid my fate. That is what I tell myself when I wonder if I went too far, if I was cruel, if I let anger guide me instead of forgiveness and mercy. Maybe forgiveness will come someday. Maybe years from now, I will be able to let go of the anger completely. But I am not there yet, not even close. And I do not think I should have to forgive them, just because society says forgiveness is noble, that holding grudges is unhealthy, that I should move on. They destroyed 2 years of my life. They abused my son for even longer. They hurt at least 3 other families. They deserve to sit with those consequences. Forgiveness is something you earn through genuine remorse and changed behavior, not something victims owe to abusers just to make everyone else more comfortable around them. Sarah never apologized, not once. Even when she was arrested, she was screaming about lawyers and unfairness, never once acknowledged what she had actually done to us. Patricia tried to play the victim herself, claiming she was misled by her doctor, that she did not understand what was happening, that she was old and confused. But the prosecutor had evidence of her previous fraud convictions, her pattern of targeting elderly people, her role as the mastermind, and the jury saw right through it. Derek tried to make a deal by testifying against them, which helped our case, but even his testimony was self-serving, focused on minimizing his own involvement and guilt. None of them showed genuine remorse for the pain they caused. They were only sorry they got caught, sorry they would face consequences, sorry their plan failed. So no, I do not forgive them. I do not wish them well. I am not taking the high road of gracious mercy toward people who showed me none. I am taking the road of justice, of accountability, of making sure they cannot hurt anyone else for a very long time. And I am at peace with that. My son struggles more with forgiveness than I do. He loved Sarah once, married her believing she was his partner, his soulmate, his future and happiness. Discovering it was all fake, that she never loved him, that he was just a mark in a con game, has devastated him in ways I cannot fully understand. He says sometimes he misses her, not the real her, but the version of her she pretended to be, the illusion he fell in love with before everything. That is the cruelest part of this kind of abuse. They do not just steal your money, they steal your memories, your trust, your ability to believe in anything. Every happy moment he had with her is now tainted. Every smile was fake. Every I love you was a lie. Every kiss was just part of the manipulation. How do you recover from that? From learning that years of your life were based on a complete fiction, that the person sleeping next to you was a stranger. His therapist says it will take years to fully process the betrayal, to rebuild his ability to trust anyone, to believe he deserves genuine love from someone real. And I worry about him, about whether he will ever be able to open his heart again, whether Sarah's abuse destroyed his capacity for healthy relationships forever. But he is trying, he is in therapy, he is rebuilding his life slowly. He is learning to recognize red flags, to trust his own judgment again over time. And he has me back in his life, his mother who loves him genuinely, who would never manipulate or betray him. who will always be honest with him. That is something Sarah could never destroy, no matter how hard she tried. The bond between mother and son, the love that existed before her and will exist after. We video chat every morning now, just to check in, to hear each other's voices, to remind ourselves we are both still here and safe and free. We have Sunday dinners where we cook together, try new recipes, laugh at our mistakes, slowly rebuild the comfortable intimacy we lost for 2 terrible years apart. We take walks in the park near my new house, talk about everything and nothing, sometimes in comfortable silence, just being together without pressure or expectations. These small moments are precious to me in a way they never were before. I never take them for granted now. I know how fragile connection really is. Before all this happened, I think I took my son for granted, assumed he would always be there, always be part of my life, always call on Sundays. But losing him, believing he had abandoned me, taught me how quickly love can be destroyed by lies, how precious family connection really is when it is real. Now I treasure every moment with him, every phone call, every visit, every text message, because I know what it feels like to have that taken away completely. And I think he feels the same way. He holds on a little tighter when we hug, calls a little more often, says I love you more freely than before. Trauma changed us both, made us more aware of how quickly everything can be lost, how important it is to say what matters while you still can today. I am not grateful for what happened. I would never choose to go through that horror. But I am grateful for what we learned, for how it changed us. We are stronger now, more careful, more aware, but also more appreciative of genuine connection, more protective of each other, more honest about our feelings always. And we are both committed to making sure what happened to us does not happen to other families, that our experience has meaning beyond just our own suffering. Michael speaks at men's abuse support groups now, talks about the signs of controlling in relationships, helps other men recognize when they are being manipulated and isolated. It was hard for him at first, admitting he was abused by his wife. Society does not make it easy for men to talk about being victims of women, but he pushes through the shame and stigma because he knows his story might save someone, might help another man escape before it is too late for them. And I speak at senior centers, financial planning workshops, community groups, anywhere people will listen to an old woman talk about being kind and abandoned on highways. Some presentations are small, just 5 or 6 people in a church basement. Others are larger, 50 people in a community center. But everyone matters to me. If even one person in that audience recognizes the warning signs in their own life and protects themselves, my story has served a purpose beyond just revenge. That is what keeps me going on hard days, knowing that my suffering was not meaningless, that it can protect others, that something good came from something horrible. I have received dozens of letters and emails from people thanking me for speaking out, telling me their own stories, asking for advice on their own situations. Some of them break my heart. Elderly people, isolated and alone, being victimized by family members, too ashamed to tell anyone, too scared to fight back hard. I respond to every single one, offer what advice I can, connect them with resources, remind them they are not alone, that they deserve dignity and justice. It has become a second career for me in my 70s, this advocacy work, this mission to protect elderly people from the abuse I survived and overcame. And it gives my life meaning in a way my nursing career never quite did, because now I am helping people who look like me, who share my vulnerabilities. When I was a nurse, I was the helper, the strong one, the caregiver, I never imagined I would become the vulnerable one, needing help to survive each day. But experiencing that vulnerability, that helplessness, that invisibility has made me a better advocate because I understand it from the inside, not just theory and concepts. I know what it feels like to be dismissed because of your age, to be treated like you are stupid or incompetent just because you are old and gray. I know what it feels like to have people talk over you, ignore you, make decisions for you without your input, treat you like a child instead of an adult. I know what it feels like to be invisible, to walk through the world and have people look right through you like you do not exist, like you are furniture. And I know what it feels like to fight back against that invisibility, to insist on being seen, heard, respected, valued as a human being with rights and dignity. That is what I try to give other elderly people when I speak to them. The knowledge that they have the right to fight back, to demand respect. We are not disposable just because we are old. We are not worthless just because we are retired. We are not incompetent just because we move slower now. We have lived full, rich lives. We have survived things younger people cannot imagine. We have wisdom and experience that deserves respect, not exploitation and dismissal. And we have rights, legal rights that protect us from abuse, from fraud, from being taken advantage of by family members or anyone else who sees opportunity. But we have to know those rights exist, have to know how to access help, have to overcome the shame and isolation that keeps us silent and vulnerable. That is what my advocacy work focuses on, empowering elderly people with the information, resources, connections, the tools they need to protect themselves from predators everywhere. I work with a coalition of organizations now, creating educational materials, training workshops, support groups specifically for elderly financial abuse victims and survivors like me. We are building a network of advocates across the state, pushing for stronger laws, better enforcement, more resources for victims, more consequences for perpetrators of abuse. It is slow work, changing systems and laws always is, but we are making progress. We are being heard. We are making a difference, one case at a time. Last year, our advocacy led to a new state law increasing penalties for financial exploitation of elderly people, making it a more serious felony with mandatory sentences. This year, we are pushing for mandatory reporting laws, requiring banks and financial institutions to report suspected elder abuse to protective services automatically without exception. And we are working on creating a statewide registry of convicted elder abusers, similar to sex offender registries, so vulnerable people can check if someone is dangerous. None of this brings back my lost 2 years, does not erase my trauma, does not make what happened okay, but it means something. It matters for the future. And it gives me purpose, direction, a reason to get up every morning beyond just surviving, beyond just existing, a way to transform pain into protection for others. I think that is what healing looks like for me. Not forgetting what happened, not pretending I am fine, but using what happened to make the world safer. Some people heal by moving on, by leaving the past behind, by focusing only on the future. And that is valid. That is their right to choose for themselves. But I heal by staying engaged with the issue, by turning my victimhood into advocacy, by making sure my story serves a purpose beyond just my own experience. And it helps, it really does, knowing that my suffering prevented someone else's suffering and that my fight made someone else's fight a little bit easier to win. I wish I did not have this story to tell. I wish none of this had ever happened. I wish I could have just grown old peacefully with my son nearby. But this is my reality. This is my life now. And I can either be bitter about what was stolen or be purposeful about what I do with what remains. I choose purpose. I choose advocacy. I choose to fight because the alternative is letting them win even after they lost, letting their actions define my entire remaining life. They do not get to define me. They do not get to be the most important thing that ever happened to me. They are just a chapter, not the whole book. I am Eleanor Thompson, 70 years old, former nurse, current bookstore worker, elder abuse survivor, advocate, mother, friend, and so much more than what they did. I am the woman who survived abandonment and homelessness and rebuilt her life from nothing, who found her son again, who got justice against impossible odds then. I am the woman who walks into senior centers and tells uncomfortable truths, who makes people face the reality of elder abuse, who refuses to be silenced now. I am the woman who chose public revenge over quiet suffering, who chose justice over forgiveness, who chose visibility over invisibility, and I stand by those choices fully. Would I do it differently if I could go back? If I could prevent it all from happening? If I could protect my younger self from their manipulation? Of course I would, in a heartbeat, without hesitation. I would protect that lonely woman who just wanted her family to love her and be present for her. But I cannot go back. I can only go forward. And forward means making meaning from pain, creating purpose from suffering, building something good from something horrible. So that is what I do every day. One presentation at a time, one elderly person empowered at a time, one less answered at a time, one day at a time. And someday, maybe years from now, maybe on my deathbed, I will look back on this chapter of my life and feel at peace with how I handled it. I will know I did not go quietly. I did not disappear. I did not let them erase me. I fought back with everything I had and I won. I will know that my fight helped others, that my voice made a difference, that my story served a purpose beyond just my own need for justice and vindication. And I will know that I chose dignity over shame, visibility over invisibility, justice over silence, and that those choices defined me more than their abuse ever could. That is my revenge, not just their prison sentences, not just their public humiliation, but my refusal to let them destroy me, my insistence on mattering and being heard. They wanted me to disappear, to be nothing, to be invisible, to be forgotten, and instead I became someone people listen to, someone who matters, someone fighting back. That is the ultimate defeat for them, knowing that the old woman they discarded became stronger, louder, more purposeful, more visible than she ever was before they came. So yes, I chose revenge. I chose public exposure. I chose to make them pay in every way possible. And I do not apologize for any of it, not anymore. Thank you for listening to my story all the way through to the end. These are real experiences from real people who survived unthinkable situations and kept fighting life. If this story touched you in any way, moved you, or made you think differently about elderly people or family dynamics, please subscribe to the channel for more. I post real stories of survival, justice, and strength every single week here. Stories that remind us we are not alone in our struggles against cruelty and exploitation. Tell me in the comments if you have lived through something similar, what you would have done in my place. I genuinely love reading your experiences and perspectives. Click on the videos appearing on your screen right now for more emotional stories that will make you reflect on family, betrayal, justice, forgiveness, and the power of truth. Until the next story, remember that being invisible does not mean being powerless. Sometimes the quietest people have the strongest will to survive, fight and win against evil. And remember that age is not weakness, gray hair is not incompetence, being elderly is not being disposable. We matter. We have rights. We have voices. We fight. Thank you for being here with me tonight, for listening to an old woman tell her story of being thrown away and clawing her way back to dignity, purpose, and justice.